Imagine yourself swimming in a sea of money. Sounds tempting, doesn't it? But what if the money was just a mirage? Have you ever heard of Ponzi schemes? Welcome to the world of financial fraud, where things are not always as they seem. In the heart of this universe lies a notorious deception known as a Ponzi scheme. This scheme, named after Charles Ponzi, a charming Italian immigrant turned swindler, has been used to defraud countless investors over the past century. Ponzi promised his investors outrageous returns, and like any good illusionist, he delivered for a while. His strategy, however, was not based on any legitimate investment. Instead, he used the money from new investors to pay off the old ones. This technique, while seemingly simple, is a dangerous game of financial musical chairs. When the music stops, the fallout can be catastrophic. So now you know, a Ponzi scheme is not as enticing as it may seem. You might wonder, how does such a scheme work? It's quite simple, yet devilishly clever. A Ponzi scheme begins when an opportunistic individual, let's call them the operator, presents an investment opportunity that promises high returns with little to no risk. It sounds too good to be true, right? Well, that's because it is. The operator doesn't actually invest the money in any legitimate business or venture. Instead, they use the funds from new investors to pay returns to earlier investors. This creates the illusion that the investment is incredibly profitable, when in reality, no actual profit is being made. This is the first stage of a Ponzi scheme, often referred to as the accumulation phase. As the scheme grows, it enters the maintenance phase. In this stage, the operator must attract a constant stream of new investors to keep the illusion alive. The operator continues to pay out returns to the old investors from the funds of the new investors. This cycle of robbing Peter to pay Paul continues, creating the illusion of a successful, profitable investment. However, here's the catch. For the scheme to survive, it must continually grow. The number of new investors must always be larger than the number of old investors. The moment the inflow of new investors slows down or stops, the scheme begins to crumble. This is the bust phase of the Ponzi scheme. When the operator can no longer maintain the illusion of profitability and can't pay the promised returns, the scheme collapses. The investors, except for the few who were lucky enough to get out early, lose their money, often their life savings. So, you see, a Ponzi scheme isn't an investment strategy. It's a financial illusion, a house of cards that inevitably falls apart. It's a game of musical chairs where most participants are left without a seat when the music stops. Ironically, the success of a Ponzi scheme relies on its ability to continually attract new investors. The best defense against a Ponzi scheme is knowledge. So what are the red flags to look out for? Well, first and foremost, consistent high returns. If an investment never seems to lose value, that's a warning sign. The stock market has its ups and downs, so a steady stream of high returns is unusual and suspicious. Then, we have unregistered investments. Legitimate investments are typically registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission, or a state regulator. If it's unregistered, it might be a Ponzi scheme. Next, overly complex strategies. If you can't understand how the investment works, or if the explanations are vague and confusing, it's best to stay away. Lastly, difficulties in receiving payments. If you're having trouble withdrawing your money, or the payments you receive are sporadic or constantly delayed, it's likely you're involved in a Ponzi scheme. Remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Be vigilant and protect your hard-earned money. What happens if you fall into the trap of a Ponzi scheme? Well, let's untangle this. The consequences are severe and far-reaching, starting with the most obvious, financial loss. When a Ponzi scheme collapses, you're likely to lose all or most of your investment. This can be devastating, especially for those who've invested their life savings. But it doesn't end there. The legal implications can be equally harrowing. If you've knowingly participated, you could face criminal charges, hefty fines, or even imprisonment. Even if you were unaware, the law may still require you to return any profits you made, leaving you in a more precarious financial state. And let's not forget the psychological impact. The betrayal, the guilt, the shattered trust. Being scammed can take a heavy emotional toll. It can leave you feeling vulnerable, and it can take a long time to rebuild your confidence. The allure of quick wealth can be captivating, but always remember there's no such thing as a free lunch.